The moment the husk breaks through the fence, my heartbeat does something wrong. It slows down. That's not what a 12-year-old's heart is supposed to do when 6 feet of rotting muscle and antlers come screaming across the yard toward his little sister. I watch its claws swing for Win's throat, and something in me that isn't a child at all steps between them and catches the strike on a broken hoe handle like it's the easiest thing in the world. The villagers behind me are screaming. My hands are shaking, but not from fear, from how weak this body is. In the 2 seconds before it matters, all I can think is, this arm won't survive 3 more hits like that. I kill it anyway. 1 clean strike under the jaw, exactly where the muscle is thinnest, exactly where I'd have hit if this were a man in armor instead of a monster. It drops mid-lunge. The whole village goes dead silent. Then I drop too, coughing blood into the dirt, because whatever's living in this body was never built to survive what I just made it do. My mother is screaming my name. Win, 7 years old, alive because of a move that shouldn't exist in a boy who wheezes just walking to the well, stares at me like she doesn't recognize me. She's right not to, because I'm not really 12. I just died as somebody else. I remember fire before I remember anything. My old life ended in smoke, in a collapsing gate, in the sound of my own unit screaming names I never got to answer back. I wasn't a knight or a chosen hero. I was a soldier, a man who survived longer than he should have, doing a job that ate everyone who did it. They called me the warden, because I was the one who stayed at the gate when everyone else ran. I died there, holding a line for people I never even got to meet, with the fight still unfinished. Then I woke up screaming in a body that couldn't hold a spoon steady. I still remember the last thing I said before the gate came down. Not a prayer, not a name I loved, just a promise to a corporal named Mattis Rain who was bleeding out beside me. Hold the line and I'll get you out. I never got the chance to find out if it was a lie. The wall came down on both of us before I could try. That promise followed me here, somehow, sitting in my chest like a splinter that never worked its way out. I couldn't save Mattis. I couldn't save anyone that night. Whatever this second chance actually is, some stubborn, broken part of me has already decided it isn't going to waste it the same way. They tell me my name is Rowan Hale, and that I was born wrong. Lungs too small, a chest that rattles when it's cold, a boy the village healer swore wouldn't see 10 summers. I made it to 12 anyway, mostly out of spite. Funny, considering I already died once and clearly didn't learn my lesson about giving up. My mother Mira has raised me and Win alone since my father Tomas didn't come home from the last real Husk raid 4 years back. She works herself to the bone so we don't starve, and she has no idea the boy she tucks in every night once tucked in a rifle instead of a blanket. I plan to keep it that way, as long as I possibly can. We live in Millhaven, a farming village pressed right against the edge of the Greywood. A forest that used to just be a forest, before it started breathing husks out like smoke. Corrupted things, twisted wrong, more of them every season. The Lord who's supposed to protect us, Cassian Drell, sends fewer soldiers every year and raises our taxes every spring like the two facts have nothing to do with each other. Nobody in Millhaven knows any of that history rides shotgun in my skull. Nobody knows the boy who fainted carrying 2 buckets of water last winter is the same one who just dropped a husk with a farming tool. Most days here look nothing like war. They look like Win chasing chickens across the yard, like Mira mending nets by lamplight, like me pretending to struggle through chores I could do in my sleep, because a boy suddenly moving like a soldier would raise questions I'm not ready to answer. It's a small, fragile kind of peace, the sort I used to guard for other people in my old life without ever quite getting to live inside of it myself. That's the curse of having a dead soldier's memory stapled to a dying kid's body. The knowledge is all there, the muscle isn't. Every time I use what I know, this body sends me the bill in blood. I think I get away with it, right up until a hand grabs my collar the next morning and hauls me behind the grain house. "Walk me through it again," says Bram Ostley, Millhaven's retired watch captain, missing his left arm since some war nobody in this village talks about out loud. His eyes are the kind that have already caught 100 boys lying to him. Tell me a 12-year-old with lung rot dropped a husk clean, first try, no wasted movement. Tell me that story again, slower. I try the line about panic and luck. He doesn't buy a single word. "I know what a killing strike looks like," he says. "I've made a few myself. What you did wasn't panic." His eyes narrow. "That was training. So who trained you?" I could keep lying. Instead, for reasons I don't fully understand, I tell him the truth. All of it. The fire, the gate. The warden. Dying with a war unfinished and waking up here, in a body built to lose. He doesn't laugh. He doesn't call me insane. He goes very quiet, then says the last thing I expect. Good, he mutters. Because this village is going to need somebody who already knows how to die for people. Might as well be somebody who's already done it. Word about the Husk kill spreads fast, the way rumors do in a place small enough for everyone to know everyone's business. By afternoon, half of Millhaven's calling it a miracle. The other half calls it a lie invented to make a sickly boy sound brave. Des Corin leads the second half personally. He's 16, built like a farmhand, and the son of the one active duty guardsman Lord Drell still bothers paying. He corners me by the well with 2 friends, grinning the grin of somebody who's never once had to actually fear dying. Heard you're a hero now, he says. Heard the sick rat saved his sister with a broken hoe. He shoves me hard enough my knees buckle. My body's still paying interest on yesterday. Funny, I heard it different. I heard you got lucky, and everyone's too polite to say it. I don't argue. Arguing costs energy I don't have to spare, and I've faced worse than a farm boy with something to prove. I just look at him the way I used to look at men twice his size right before I put them down, and something in my face makes him let go of my collar half a second faster than he meant to. He doesn't understand why. That's fine, he will. Isla Farron watches the whole thing from the well's edge, arms crossed, saying nothing, which is its own kind of statement, since Isla Farron has an opinion about everything. She's the best shot with a bow under 20 summers in Millhaven, orphaned by the same raid that took my father, and about as easy to impress as a brick wall. You didn't fight back, she says, once Des is gone. Wasn't worth the energy. That's not why. Her eyes do the same thing Bram's did, reading me like a puzzle with a piece showing. You looked at him like you already knew how the fight ends before it starts. I don't answer that. I can't, not without handing her the same confession Bram already has, and 1 a day is my limit. She doesn't push. She just watches me walk away with a look that says she's going to keep watching. That should worry me more than it does. Old Maeve, the village healer, corners me 2 days after the Husk kill, presses cold fingers to my wrist, and goes quiet in a way I recognize from my old life. The particular silence of someone counting how much time a person has left, and deciding not to say the number out loud. Your heart stuttered during that fight, she says finally. I could hear it from across the yard. A body like yours isn't built to survive shocks like that even once, Rowan. Certainly not twice. How many more do I have in me? She doesn't answer right away, which is its own kind of answer. I don't know. Fewer than you'll want. She wraps my wrist like it's made of glass. Whatever you're doing, whatever that was, every time you do it again, you're spending something you can't buy back. I already knew that. Hearing it from someone who isn't Bram, someone who has no idea what I really am, just makes it land heavier. In my old life, I always assumed I'd die old or die fast. Never both at once. A slow fuse burning under a body that could snap at any second regardless of what killed it first. I don't tell Maeve any of that. I just thank her and walk out into the sun, doing the math on a clock I can't see the face of, same as always. Bram doesn't waste time. 2 nights later, he pulls me into the old grain barn after Mira's asleep, drops a wrapped bundle at my feet, and tells me to open it. Inside is a short soldier's blade, notched from use, older than I am even in this life. Mine, he says. From before I lost the arm. It's yours now, but only if you understand what it costs. He crouches to my eye level. That body of yours isn't a weapon platform. It's a candle. Every real fight burns it down a little more. You use what you know. You pay for it in blood and breath. Understand that going in, or don't pick it up at all. I pick it up anyway. Of course I do. That night, once the house goes quiet, I take the blade out behind the barn alone and just hold it, testing the balance. And for one disorienting second, the weight in my hand feels exactly like a rifle stock instead of a soldier's short sword. Different tool, same grim familiarity. A memory surfaces uninvited. Rain, mud, the last stand at the gate. Mattis Rain laughing at something stupid, seconds before everything went wrong. I don't know how long I stand there before I realize I'm crying, silently, in a way this new small body does easily, and my old one never let me. It isn't grief exactly. It's closer to relief. Proof that some part of the man I was is still in here, still remembers, Still cares enough to ache over people who've been dead for a lifetime that technically hasn't started yet in this world. I wipe my face, sheath the blade, and go back inside before Mira wakes up and asks questions I'm not ready to answer. We train in secret after that. Not swordplay, not really, since my arms can't hold a real stance for more than a minute without shaking apart. Bram teaches me how to fight like something breakable that refuses to break. Footwork over force, timing over strength, ending things in one motion because I don't get a second one. Every session ends with me coughing into a rag so Mira doesn't see the blood on my shirt. You already know all this, Bram says one night, watching me relearn a stance I could have taught in my sleep in my old life. You're not learning to fight, you're learning to fight in this. He taps my chest. He's right. That's the whole war, right there. Not the husks, not the greywood. Just this body, and how much it'll let me spend before it collapses. One night he pushes too hard, running me through the same opening stance 11 times until my legs finally buckle for real and I go down hard in the dirt, coughing so violently I can't get a full breath for almost a minute. Bram's at my side before I hit the ground, and for the first time since he handed me that blade, I see real fear on his face instead of grim calculation. Enough, he says, voice rough. That's enough for tonight. I'm fine. You're not, and we both know it. He sits back on his heels, staring at his one hand like it's failed him somehow. I buried men who trained exactly like this, pushed past what their bodies could give, because the alternative was dying slower somewhere else. I swore I wasn't going to do that to a child. I'm not a child, not really. You're wearing one, he snaps, sharper than I've ever heard him. That's the part that matters right now. He doesn't apologize for the outburst, and I don't ask him to. We sit in silence until my breathing evens out, and neither of us says what we're both thinking, that there might not be a version of this where I get strong enough fast enough. 3 nights later, the Greywood sends something bigger. It hits at dusk, while half the village is still in the fields. A pack this time, 5 husks moving with a coordination the smaller ones never had before, like something's directing them now instead of just releasing them. Screaming, fire catching on a hay cart. Dez's own father, the guardsman, going down hard under a claw swipe meant for his throat. I move before I decide to. Old instinct, old training, 100 drills from a life that ended in a different fire. I get between the husks and the wounded guardsman, using every trick Bram gave me, plus a dozen he didn't, because this is real now, and real doesn't wait for permission. It goes well for exactly 4 seconds. Then a husk I don't see in time rakes my side open, and the world tilts, and I understand with total clarity that this is the fight where this body finally runs out of candle. Then an arrow takes it through the eye. Isla doesn't say anything as she reloads, doesn't wait for thanks, just keeps firing while I drag myself and the guardsman clear. Between the two of us and Bram, who comes in swinging one-armed and merciless, the pack goes down. Barely. Dez's father lives. I don't. Not for about 4 terrifying seconds when my heart stutters and everything goes white. I wake up in my own bed with Mira crying over me and no memory of the last part of the fight. Isla's the one who tells me later, flat and unimpressed, that I stopped breathing for 11 seconds and she counted every one of them. You're going to get yourself killed being a hero, she says. Already happened once, I almost say. I don't. Instead, I just tell her thanks for the arrow, and something in her expression shifts. Not soft exactly, but less like a wall and more like a door that isn't fully closed anymore. Dez doesn't say thank you at all, but he doesn't call me a liar again either. He just watches me now, quiet, calculating, like a boy trying to figure out where he stands in a story that's stopped making sense to him. His father does, once the fever from the claw wound finally breaks. He finds me by the smithy, still bandaged across the shoulder, and doesn't waste words on it. You didn't have to do that, he says. Boy your size, your health, against 5 of them. You could have stayed back. Wouldn't have been much of a protector if I had. He studies me a long moment, the way soldiers study something they can't quite classify yet. Whatever you are, whatever's really going on with you, I owe you a debt I can't repay standing here. Dez isn't wrong to be confused about you. Neither am I. Doesn't change what you did. He claps a hand on my good shoulder, careful, and walks off without waiting for a response. It's the closest thing to being seen clearly that I've had since I woke up in this life. The village elders call a meeting the next morning, and I'm not invited, which doesn't stop me from hearing every word through the millhouse wall. Half the room wants to thank me. The other half wants to know why a pack of 5 husks hunted in formation for the first time in Millhaven's history the same season a sickly boy suddenly started killing them with his bare hands. I'm not saying he's the cause, says one farmer, in the exact tone of someone who is absolutely saying that. I'm saying strange things follow strange boys. Maybe the Greywoods noticed him same as we have. Elder Yorick, gray-bearded and tired in the way only someone who's buried too many neighbors gets tired, shuts it down fast. The boy saved my grandson's life last week. I'll not sit here and let fear turn into an excuse to abandon the one person keeping more of us alive. But the accusation doesn't fully die. It just goes quiet, waiting. Mira hears about the meeting before I even get home, and I've never seen her that angry. Not at the Husks, not at the raid that took my father, at her own neighbors, for daring to suggest her son is the problem instead of the one thing standing between them and the tree line. She doesn't say anything to me about it. She doesn't have to. I can see it sitting behind her eyes for days. 2 days after that, Lord Drell's tax collector rides into Millhaven right on schedule. Like a pack of husks nearly burning the village down changes nothing about the ledger. He counts coin off the village elder while the burned hay cart still smokes in the background. And when someone asks, carefully, respectfully, about sending real soldiers to reinforce the fence line, his answer is short. Lord Drell is aware of the situation, he says, already turning his horse. Resources are allocated where they're needed most. Old Maeve steps into his path before he clears the square, holding out a request she's clearly submitted before. Funds for medicine stock, burned along with half her supply shed in the raid. He barely glances at the paper. Petitions go through the manor steward, he says, not the road, and your outstanding balance from last season is still unpaid, healer. I'd worry less about medicine and more about that, if I were you. He rides off before she can answer. Maeve folds the petition back into her coat without a word, and something in the set of her shoulders tells me this isn't the first time, and won't be the last, and that Lord Drell's idea of governing this village stops entirely at the edge of what he can collect from it. Bram watches him ride out with an expression I recognize, because I used to wear it myself in my old life, right before people in charge got a lot of good soldiers killed through decisions made far away from the bleeding. He's been saying that for 6 years, Bram mutters, ever since the raids started getting worse. Funny how the resources never actually arrive. I file that away. It matters more than either of us knows yet. 2 nights later, I wake to the sound of dogs going frantic near the edge of the village, right where Isla lives with 3 younger orphans she's basically raised herself since her father died. I'm out the window and running before I've fully decided to, blade in hand, lungs already burning in protest. I find a lone husk circling the fence line, testing gaps, patient in a way the earlier ones never bothered being. I put it down fast and quiet, alone, no witnesses, exactly the way Bram's been teaching me to end things before they escalate into something louder. I'm dragging the body toward the tree line to hide it, when a voice behind me nearly stops my heart for real this time. You weren't planning on telling me about this, Isla says, bow already lowered, having clearly been watching for longer than I realized. Wasn't planning on you needing to know. That's not your decision to make. She studies the dead husk, then me, then the blood on my sleeve I haven't noticed yet. You're doing this alone at night now. That's not protecting people, Rowan. That's just finding new ways to die where nobody can stop you in time. I don't have a good answer for that, mostly because she's right. She doesn't report it to Bram. She just starts showing up to more of my night patrols after that. Uninvited, impossible to argue out of it, and some stubborn part of me is grateful, even though I'd never admit it out loud. It's a week later, patching a fence with Bram, when he finally tells me the part he's been avoiding. The pack that hit us, he says, not looking up from his work. It wasn't random. 5 husks don't hunt in formation on their own. Something's calling them out of the Greywood on a pattern, and I've seen that pattern before. 30 years ago, before I lost this arm, he tells me about a war most of Millhaven's too young to remember, a corruption that swallowed 3 villages whole before his unit finally sealed it back into the deep Greywood, at a cost he still wears on his shoulder where an arm used to be. They called the thing behind it the Hollow King, not a monster, something older, something that doesn't die, only sleeps and wakes and hungers again. There was a village called Thornmere, he says, and his voice goes somewhere far away, bigger than Millhaven, good people. My unit got there 4 days too late, and there wasn't a Thornmere left to save. Just the shape of one, and the thing wearing it. I had a friend in that unit, a scout named Perrin Voss, who swore he saw the same corruption take root twice more before we finally cornered it and drove it back into the deep wood. He didn't walk out of that fight. Most of us didn't. He flexes the stump where his arm used to be, an old habit I've noticed before but never understood until now. I've spent 30 years hoping I was wrong about what I saw the night we sealed it. I wasn't. We thought we killed it, Bram says quietly. We didn't. We just made it go back to sleep, and something's waking it up again. My chest goes cold in a way that has nothing to do with my bad lungs, because the fire that killed me in my old life, the collapsing gate, the screaming, the thing that tore through my company like we were nothing, I never saw what caused it. Never got a clear look before I died holding that line, but it felt like this, the same wrongness, the same hunger behind the flames. I don't tell Bram that part yet. I'm not ready to say out loud that the thing that might be waking up in this world's forest could be the same kind of thing that ended my last one. That maybe I didn't escape it by dying. Maybe I just followed it here. Bram notices something's changed in me over the next few days, even without the full truth. You're fighting different, he says, watching me run drills with a new, harder edge. Angrier. Wouldn't you be? I was. 30 years of it hasn't cooled off much, if I'm honest. He doesn't push for more than that, which is its own kind of mercy. He just adjusts the drills, teaches me to turn the anger into precision instead of recklessness, because a soldier who fights angry and sloppy doesn't last long enough to matter. I already knew that too. It's easier to remember when someone says it out loud. 4 days pass in an uneasy quiet, the kind that never means what it looks like. Husk sightings near the tree line triple. Farmers stop taking the eastern fields alone. Bram trains me harder, faster, like he's racing a clock only he can see the numbers on. Isla starts showing up to the sessions uninvited, standing at the barn door with her bow like she has every right to be there, which by that point she does. She doesn't ask permission. She just starts calling out distances and angles while Bram runs me through drills, and somehow her voice cuts through my exhaustion better than his does. "Where'd you actually learn to move like that?" she asks one evening, after I put an opponent's stance break exactly where Bram wanted it on the first try. Not the village hero story, the real one. Would you believe me if I told you? Try me. I almost do. The words are right there. The fire, the gate, the whole impossible truth of it. And for one long second, I think I'm actually going to say it out loud to someone who isn't Bram. Then a horn sounds from the watchtower. 3 short blasts, the signal for a tree line sighting, and the moment closes as fast as it opened. Later, she says, already reaching for her quiver, and it isn't a question. Then Wynn goes missing at dusk. Not far, just past the orchard, chasing a barn cat like she's done 100 times. But 100 times, the graywood wasn't already restless. I find her frozen at the tree line, a husk not 20 feet away, low and coiled and staring at her like she's dinner. I don't think, I just run, and this time I don't hold anything back. Every trick, every ounce of speed this dying body has, spent in one straight line between my sister and something that wants to kill her. I put the blade through its skull before it finishes its lunge. Then my legs give out completely, and this time there's no getting back up on my own. Mira finds us both. Wynn crying, unhurt, and me on the ground coughing blood onto grass gone dark in the twilight. A dead husk 3 feet away with my blade still in its skull. For one long, terrible moment, my mother just stares. Not at the monster, at me, at the blade, at the boy she thought she knew. "Rowan," she says, voice shaking. "What was that? What are you?" I don't have a lie fast enough for that question. Not this time. So I tell her some of the truth. Not the fire, not the warden, not the whole impossible weight of it, but enough. Enough that I'm stronger than I look, that I've been training in secret, that I can protect this family even if my body isn't supposed to be able to. She doesn't understand all of it. She doesn't need to. She just holds both of us in the dark until I stop shaking, and something in her eyes tells me she's decided to be afraid later, once we're safe. We're not safe. Not yet. Not close. Later that night I find Mira on the porch with Bram, voices low, and I stop just past the doorway when I hear my own name. She's asking him, not me, him, to promise he'll look after Wynn if something happens that she isn't strong enough to stop. Bram doesn't make the promise easily. I've never heard him sound less like a soldier, and more like a man who's already lost too many people to make promises lightly. "I'll do what I can," he finally says. "That's the only honest thing I can offer anyone anymore." It's not the answer Mira wanted, but she takes it, and I retreat before either of them knows I heard. Wynn finds me in the loft an hour later, quiet in a way 7-year-olds usually aren't. She doesn't cry, doesn't ask questions. She just holds out a stick she's whittled into something roughly sword-shaped and asks me, dead serious, to show her how to hold it right. "I don't want to just be the one you save," she says. "I want to help." I don't have the heart to tell her no. I show her one stance. Nothing dangerous, nothing real, just enough to make her feel like she's not only ever the reason I run toward danger. It's a small thing. It matters more than either of us says out loud. Dez finds out about the Hollow King the same night. Bram let it slip in front of him, trying to rally more hands for the fence line, and something about hearing there's an ancient evil actually stirring, rather than just bad luck and bad weather, cracks something loose in him. 2 days later, Lord Drell's soldiers ride in early, unannounced, asking very specific questions about a boy who supposedly killed 2 Husks bare-handed. Only one person in Millhaven talked. I know exactly who, before Dez even opens his mouth to deny it. "I didn't think they'd—" he starts when I corner him behind the smithy. "I thought if Drell knew what you could do, he'd finally send real soldiers. I thought I was helping." "You weren't," I say. "You handed a scared lord a reason to be scared of me, instead of the actual monster." He doesn't have an answer for that. For the first time since I've known him in this life, Des Corin looks genuinely afraid, not of a Husk, but of what he might have just done to somebody who saved his father's life a week ago. Drell's soldiers don't come for me directly. Not yet. They just watch, ask questions, make it clear that whatever I am, someone with a title and a treasury has taken notice. Bram calls it worse than an outright attack. "A lord who's scared of you is a lord who'll sacrifice you the second it's convenient," he says. And I don't think Drell's planning on protecting this village at all. I think he's planning on surviving it. There's a difference. He's more right than either of us wants him to be. 2 of Drell's soldiers find me alone at the well the next morning, close enough that I can smell the leather and steel of them before I hear their boots. The taller one crouches to my eye level, the exact way Bram once did, except there's nothing kind behind it. "Heard some stories about you," he says. "Killing Husks barehanded, surviving hits that should have folded you in half." He studies my face like he's pricing livestock. Lord Drell takes a personal interest in things that don't add up, you understand. "I got lucky," I say, flat, giving him nothing. "Funny." That's what everyone says right before we find out they weren't. He straightens, glances at the other soldier, and for a moment, I genuinely don't know if this ends with them walking away or with me testing exactly how fast I can move against 2 armed men in broad daylight. Then he smiles instead, cold and unhurried. "We'll be around. Villages have a way of needing us eventually." They leave without another word. I stand at that well for a long time afterward, hands shaking for reasons that have nothing to do with my lungs, understanding for the first time that Drell isn't just neglecting Millhaven out of laziness. He's watching it, watching me. I tell Bram everything the moment I find him, and for once he doesn't have an immediate plan, just a long, heavy silence. "A lord that curious isn't looking for a hero to reward," he finally says. "He's looking for a problem to manage." We need to know why he's really watching this village before he decides what kind of problem you are. You think he already knows something? I think a man doesn't neglect a village for 6 years running unless he's getting something out of the arrangement, Bram says. And I think we're about to find out what. "My father kept records nobody asked him to keep," Isla tells me, the night she finally shows me what she's been working on. Tax collections, patrol schedules, raid dates. He always said the numbers didn't add up right. That Drell's men showed up too conveniently thin whenever the Greywood got bad. Nobody listened to a farmer with a ledger. Then the raid that killed him happened on almost the exact night his notes predicted trouble, and I've never been able to let that go. It's Isla who finds the pattern that ties it together. Quiet, methodical, cross-referencing years of tax records her late father kept before the raid that killed him. Every major Husk surge in the last 6 years lines up, almost to the week, with a private payment from Lord Drell's treasury to an account nobody in Millhaven can identify. "He's not failing to protect us," she says, laying the ledger pages out in the barn like evidence at a trial. "He's paying something to leave his own manor alone. and I don't think it cares where the rest of the corruption goes, as long as it stays away from him. Bram goes pale, in a way I haven't seen since he told me about losing his arm. The Hollow King doesn't take coin, he says slowly. It takes tribute, blood mostly. Sometimes whole villages if the price is right and somebody's desperate enough to pay it. We almost don't get to finish the conversation. A shadow crosses the barn door. One of Drell's soldiers doing a slow circuit of the village, checking windows and faces a little too carefully for a routine patrol. Isla kills the lantern with 2 fingers and we go still in the dark, the ledger pages pressed flat against my chest, until his footsteps fade back toward the square. They know we're looking, she whispers, or they suspect it. Then we stop being careful about it, I say. We're out of time to be careful. The pieces click into a shape I don't like at all. Drell isn't just neglecting Millhaven. He's feeding it to the Greywood, on a schedule, to keep his own manor untouched. And the raids have been getting worse because 6 years of tribute have made whatever's out there stronger, hungrier, and closer to fully waking up. How long? I ask. Until it's strong enough to stop taking scraps and just take everything at once? Bram doesn't answer right away. When he finally does, his voice has the flat calm of a man who's delivered worse news before and hated every second of it. There's a night the old stories call the Hollow Tide, he says, when whatever's sleeping out there gets strong enough to send something real instead of scraps. Based on what I remember and what that ledger says, we're maybe 3 nights out. 3 nights to turn a farming village with a handful of guardsmen and 1 half-trained dying kid into something that can survive whatever the Greywood's about to send. 3 nights, with the one man who's supposed to protect us actively paying to make sure it happens. We don't waste any of them. Bram pulls together every villager who can hold a spear, sharp or not, and drills them on the one tactic that might actually matter. Don't fight the husks in the open. Funnel them, force them through the narrow lane by the mill where numbers stop mattering as much as position. Isla scouts the tree line every dawn and dusk, counting shapes, tracking how close they're gathering. Mira, once the shock wears off, turns out to be terrifyingly efficient at organizing supplies, like she's been waiting her whole life for a reason to be useful in exactly this way. Des shows up on the second night without being asked, hauling lumber for the barricade, saying nothing about what he did, just working until his hands blister. It's not forgiveness. It's not nothing either. He finally speaks to me directly on the 3rd night, hauling a beam past where I'm resharpening blades. I keep thinking about what would have happened if Drell's men had taken you somewhere before the tide, he says, not looking at me. Village wouldn't have had a chance without you tonight. I almost handed that away for nothing. You didn't know that then. Doesn't make it better. He sets the beam down harder than it needs. I'm not asking you to forgive it. I just needed to say it out loud once. He walks off before I can answer, and I let him, because some apologies land better without a reply attached. Elder Yorick raises the idea of evacuating the youngest children deeper into the region, away from the Greywood, before the tide arrives. Half the parents agree instantly. Mira doesn't. Not until she looks at Win's face and sees the answer already written there. I'm not going, Win says, arms crossed, doing her best impression of Isla's stubbornness. You need every hand you can get. I can carry water. I can run messages. I'm not hiding somewhere far away while everyone I love might die without me. Bram backs Win up before Mira can argue further, which surprises all 3 of us. A village fights better when it's fighting for people standing right in front of it, he says. Sending the children away doesn't just protect them. It takes something out of the rest of us we might need on the worst night of this. You're 7, Mira says, voice cracking. I'm the only 7-year-old who's already seen a husk up close and lived, Win fires back. And nobody in the room has an answer for that, least of all me. In the end, she stays, assigned to run water and bandages between the barricades. Not the front line, but not safely far away either, which is its own quiet agreement that none of us are pretending this village has anywhere safe left in it. Isla takes it upon herself to teach Win how to wrap a bandage properly, and how to duck behind cover instead of freezing, patient in a way I've rarely seen from her with anyone but me. Win follows her around for the rest of that day like she's found a second older sibling, and for one small stretch of a very frightening week, it almost feels like the 4 of us, Bram, Isla, Win, and me, have quietly become something like a family none of us asked for and all of us need. Isla and Bram nearly come to blows over strategy the night before the tide. She wants archers spread wide along the whole fence line to thin the swarm early. He wants everyone concentrated at the mill funnel where the numbers favor us. They argue in front of half the village until I finally step between them, exhausted, and point out the obvious answer neither of them wants to hear. We don't have enough people to do both, so we do the one that keeps the most children alive if it goes wrong. The funnel wins. Isla doesn't forgive the decision easily, but she doesn't fight it either, and that's its own kind of trust. I spend every spare hour with Bram going over the one thing that actually worries me. Not the swarm, but whatever leads it. If the Hollow King is strong enough now to send something real, it won't be another pack of husks. It'll be something built to end a fight fast, and my body has exactly one all-or-nothing gear before it stops working completely. There's a move, Bram says, on the last night before the tide, watching me barely hold a stance without shaking. From the old war, we called it the Warden's Line. One clean opening, total commitment. No second chance built in. It killed 3 of the men who tried it. It also killed the thing they were fighting, every single time. Sounds like a fair trade, I say. He doesn't laugh. It's not a trade if you're the one who doesn't walk away from it. I already know that. I already died once holding a line exactly like it. I go to sleep that night with Win curled against my side and Mira sitting up by the door with a kitchen knife she doesn't know how to use, and I don't tell either of them what tomorrow might actually cost. The hollow tide comes at moonrise, and the Greywood doesn't send a pack this time. It sends a wall. Dozens of husks pour out of the tree line at once, more than Millhaven's ever seen in one place, driving straight for the barricade with a single-minded hunger that makes the earlier raids look like warnings. The east torches go out first, not knocked over, just extinguished, all at once, like something wanted us blind before it wanted us dead. For one horrible stretch of seconds, the entire fence line is fighting shapes in the dark instead of monsters they can actually see. Behind them, cutting through trees taller than the roofline of the mill itself, comes something with too many limbs and a head that isn't shaped like anything that should exist. The villagers start calling it the Herald before anyone's even sure what to call it. The name sticks because nothing better comes. The funnel by the mill holds, barely, and only because Bram's drilling actually worked, spears finding gaps in the crush instead of flailing at open air. Isla's arrows drop 3 husks in the time it takes most people to draw one breath. Methodical, merciless, exactly the girl who counted 11 seconds of my heart not beating and decided that would never happen twice on her watch. Elder Yorick falls near the granary, pulling 2 husks off a cornered family before a third one gets through his guard. There isn't time to grieve it. There's barely time to register it before the next wave crashes into the line, and I understand in that moment exactly how war actually works. Not in clean victories, but in losses you have to keep fighting through instead of stopping to feel. Isla gets cut off near the barricade's east edge, 2 husks closing on her position while her quiver runs dry, and for one heart-stopping second I'm too far away to reach her. Des gets there first. No weapon training worth mentioning, just raw nerve and a length of fence post, driving both husks back long enough for her to draw her last arrows and finish them herself. Neither of them says anything about it afterward. They don't have to. Then the Herald reaches the barricade, and the line doesn't hold at all. It goes through the first row of defenders like they're not there, Bram included, thrown clear across the lane, his one good arm bent wrong beneath him, not moving. Wynn screams from the doorway where she's supposed to be hiding because she can see her mother frozen between the Herald and the house, and I understand with total ice-cold clarity that there is no version of tonight where I get to hold anything back. I go in with the Warden's Line. For one fractured half-second, my body simply refuses. Lungs seizing, legs threatening to fold, every nerve screaming that this is exactly the kind of hit that ends me for good this time. I remember Mattis Rain laughing at something stupid seconds before the gate came down. Remember the promise I never got to keep. I'm not breaking another one tonight. Everything Bram taught me, every scrap of muscle memory from a life that ended in a fire just like this one, poured into a single opening I get exactly once. I take a hit meant for my mother across the ribs, that I feel crack even through the adrenaline. I put the blade somewhere no husk anatomy ever had to protect before, because the Herald isn't a husk, it's something else. And something else has a different kind of weak point if you know how to look for it in the half-second you're given. It screams, a sound like a mountain tearing, and starts to collapse into the same black rot the smaller husks leave behind when they die. That's when I see Lord Drell's men at the edge of the firelight, not fighting, not helping, loading a cart with the village's grain reserves while everyone's too busy dying to notice. Drell himself sits his horse a safe distance back, watching his tribute finally arrive properly, watching us bleed for a debt he's the one who created. Dez sees it too. Whatever's left of his loyalty to a lord who never once sent real help burns off completely in that one look. The herald finishes collapsing into black smoke and silence just as my legs give out beneath me, the same way they did at the tree line with Win. Except this time, there's no getting back up in a few minutes. My vision goes white at the edges. Somewhere very far away, I hear Isla screaming my name and Mira's hands on my chest and Win crying, and none of it feels like it's happening to somebody who's still exactly here. I don't die. Not this time. But I come close enough to taste it. Close enough that for one long, terrible stretch of darkness, I feel something else notice me. Not Bram, not my family. Something older, patient, and very far away, turning its attention toward the body it just watched survive the impossible. When I wake up 2 days later, Millhaven is still standing. Bram's arm is broken, but he is, stubbornly, alive. Dez told the surviving guardsmen everything he saw Drell's men doing, and words already riding toward the capital faster than any tribute cart ever could. Isla hasn't left my bedside the entire time, which she denies with the exact amount of stubbornness that confirms it's true. Villagers who used to call me a liar now can't look me in the eye without something like reverence, and somebody's already started calling me the village's protector, like it's a title instead of a job I never applied for. Old Maeve doesn't stop moving for 2 full days after the tide, patching wounds by lamplight with a supply shed still half empty from the raid Drell's tax collector refused to fund. Bram's arm gets set in a splint that'll never quite sit right again. A dozen other villagers carry wounds they'll wear for the rest of their lives. Nobody died who didn't have to. That's the only mercy anyone can find in the wreckage. And in a village this small, it has to be enough. We bury Elder Yorick 2 mornings after the tide, the whole village gathered in a silence heavier than anything the fighting left behind. Mira holds Win's hand through the whole thing. Isla stands close enough to me that our shoulders touch and neither of us moves away. Nobody makes a speech about heroism. Somebody just says his name, and everyone repeats it, and that's the whole ceremony, and somehow it's enough. 3 days after that, a column of soldiers rides in under a banner that isn't Drell's, capital colors, grim-faced, carrying a writ with his name on it. Dez's testimony, combined with what's left of the burned tribute ledger Isla salvaged, was apparently more than enough. They find Lord Drell at his manor still trying to explain away 6 years of missing soldiers and unexplained payments, and they don't listen for long. He doesn't look at any of us as they lead him out in chains. I don't feel the satisfaction I expected to feel. Mostly I just feel tired, and grateful, and aware that removing one corrupt man did nothing at all to put the real threat back to sleep. That evening Isla finds me on the barricade fence, watching the tree line out of habit I can't seem to shake. She doesn't say anything for a while, just sits close enough that our shoulders touch again, watching the same dark tree line I am. "You almost died in front of me twice now," she says finally. "I'd like it if you stopped doing that." Wasn't exactly planned either time. I know. She doesn't look at me when she says the next part. "I'd still like it if you stopped anyway. I've lost enough people to this forest already." It's the closest either of us has come to saying something neither of us is fully ready to say. And we let it sit there, unfinished, because some things don't need finishing tonight. Mira corners me alone before bed. The first real quiet we've had since Win nearly died at the tree line. She doesn't ask about the fire, or the warden, or any of the impossible things I still haven't told her. She just holds my face in both hands like she's checking I'm really here. "Whatever you are," she says softly, "you're still my son." That part I'm not confused about at all. It's not everything. It's more than I expected, and for tonight, it's enough to let me sleep. It should feel like winning. It doesn't. Not fully, because 2 days ago, in the space between almost dying and waking back up, I heard something that wasn't a dream. A voice with no shape, patient and ancient and amused, saying words that have been sitting cold in my chest ever since. "Found you again. I never told it my name. I never told anyone in this life about the fire, or the gate, or the soldier I used to be, dying with a war unfinished in a world it might have burned down too. But something out there in the dark just recognized me anyway. Recognized the soul, not the body, and it didn't sound surprised. It sounded like it had been waiting. I don't tell Bram. I don't tell Isla. I definitely don't tell Mira, who's finally starting to sleep through the night again, now that Drell's gone and the tides survived. Some fights you carry alone for as long as you possibly can, and this one, I have a feeling, is only getting started. The Herald was never the real threat. It was a scout, and whatever sent it just found out its favorite unfinished business followed it into a whole new life. Let's aim for 600 likes and I'll bring you the next chapter fast.